Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Campfire. I'm Jersh,
9 mirrors.
and we're a couple of friends huddled around our computers to review movies and talk about pop culture in general. In this episode, we are going to review the movie Anatomy of a Fall. Anatomy of a Fall is technically considered a French film, but I think there's English and Swedish dialogue, maybe German as well. There's a lot of different languages in the movie. It was directed by Justine Triet and written by Justine Triet along with Arthur Harari. It stars Sandra Hüller, Swan Arlud, Milo Mercado Grenier, and a bunch of other performers that I don't want to butcher their names because this isn't a meat shop. So I watched this movie again about a month ago when I was a little under the weather, getting caught up on some of the Oscar nominees. And Mears, to my knowledge, you watched this movie today. Is that right?
I did, yeah. I finished it mere hours ago.
Okay. So let me ask you, had you even heard of this movie before, and what did you think of it?
I had never heard of it before, didn't know it existed, didn't know it was nominated. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't it I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't exactly like it ended up not being like what I even at the beginning what I thought it was gonna be. I didn't expect like the majority of the film to be what it was.
I should say, too,
Um,
we're going to do a spoiler free portion.
mhm.
So we won't spoil the movie in this portion of the review where we give our overall thoughts and rating, but then later we'll save spoilers for the end as far as like the end of the movie and any more specific detailed thoughts. But sorry, I just wanted to put that out there. Continue.
Yeah, you're fine. Um, but I mean, I didn't dislike it. And this one, it was like 2.5 hours, I think, like 4.5 to me.
Really? So you
I
felt
don't
the
know what
time
it
on
is.
this one?
I
Okay.
did. I felt it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, yeah, I just had kind of heard through the grapevine on social media and other shows that I'm aware of that this was really popular amongst film fans, and it was nominated for a few Academy Awards. It's actually nominated for 5 Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Editing, and Best Actress for the lead there. I also didn't know what to expect. I avoided the synopsis. I did not watch the trailer. Just on the word of mouth that it was an Oscar nominated film that was at the top of a lot of lists, I rented it and I gave it a shot. And there are some things that I really genuinely love about it. Um, where and I'll talk about that in more detail, but I just felt the story and the dialogue was like very compelling
hmm
about how you know kind of people living their day-to-day lives, maybe saying or doing certain things, acting a certain way in one particular moment of their life, because something happens, it can kind of be scrutinized and held over you and, dissected, in a way you would never expect based on what you had said on a throwaway Sunday afternoon. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so yeah, I
Kind of scary.
loved. Yeah, it's terrifying. Like I loved the dialogue and the concept. Like within the first 5 or 10 minutes, when you find out the concept of the movie, which we won't give away too much here, um, I'm like, how this can't be the whole movie. You know what I mean? Like really just talking about this. It's the movie's literally called Anatomy of a Fall. We're really just gonna sit
Mhm.
here and talk about a fall for 2.5 hours, and sure as shit we did. I personally, I did not feel the runtime on this one. I felt that information is revealed to you at a pretty healthy pace, where there's a lot of kind of twists and turns. Where it's like for me, my emotions, I went back and forth. I was like so sure that the fall was one way, then I was so sure it was another way. Then the script kept
Mhm.
giving me more information, and I do really agree with that editing Oscar nomination as far as like the scenes they talk about and the scenes they show you and the decision making between going back and forth at those particular times. I thought it was just like very well done. I would
Mhm.
agree that it's essentially what I call like an A plot movie, where like this is the movie, this is what it's about. There's not really anything else going on in the background. It's all about this. It's kind of like old school in that way. Like it's, 70s or 80s movie. Like I mean, how do I say this? Like most modern films, to keep up with audiences' attention spans, have B plots, C plots, other things going on. Inception has, we need to steal this idea, but now it's we need to plant it. But now I have this personal history with my ex-wife, and it's impacting the main plot, and all these different types of things. Where this is very straightforward. Like there was a fall, and we're going to analyze it
Hmm.
all the way, all the way. So if you're not, if it didn't work for you, and you don't want to give it such a charitable reading, you could say it was like a kind of like a fancy CSI episode. You know what I mean? Where it's like, yep, we have this problem and this investigation, and everybody loves true crime right now. But I really did feel that the performances and the believability of everything that we were dealing with, and again, the dialogue, yeah, just in general of how things were said and how things are talked about, how they were said, I just thought was like very compelling. So yeah, overall, I liked it quite a bit. I didn't love it. I am certainly glad that I watched it. Um, and yeah, I would say there's a child actor in the movie in particular that I thought was very kind of compelling and believable. There's not,
Hmm.
when you hire a kid, especially such a young talent, it can be a coin toss on if you're going to get an actor or you're going to get a kid, and like that kid is an actor. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
he got to show a wide range of emotions in a believable way, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I would say that the movie makes me terrified to do or say anything around anyone ever.
Hmm.
Like it's like almost a horror movie.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
anything else you want to add for pros and cons before we get to the score on this one?
Um, I'm a huge fan of French cinema, so I was really excited when I realized that it was French. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't hate it. It just kind of was to me. But yeah, there definitely were some really memorable parts. But I kept finding myself like checking the time, like, okay, how much, I think like you were saying, like how much longer can we like drag this plot out? Like
Mm-hmm.
surely they've got to come to some kind of conclusion soon. Nope. It's gonna be, another hour, 30 more minutes, we won't find out until 2 hours and 30 minutes have elapsed.
And it really is. This is kind of like really unrelated, but something that I thought that the movie did for me that it didn't really have anything to do with the movie is it really made me appreciate meticulous careers. Like a scientist or an investigator who,
Mm.
realistically, literally does have to, at a glacier's pace, go over this and re-go over this and look at the notes and look at the witnesses, and because you've got to get it right, and you have to
Hmm.
show, that you were trying to get it right, because if it seems like you weren't trying to get it right, then you're screwed. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like it just really gave me an appreciation for a lot of like behind the scenes hard work that a lot of people do. That you only get to live once, and they spend their lives, rereading the same notes about a fall for hours on end to make sure they understand
Hmm.
every aspect and detail of it. So yeah, what I'm saying is science is awesome. Okay. So yeah, so Mears, what is your score here with the Modern Campfire Crew?
So my score is 6.5 marshmallows.
6.5 marshmallows for Mirrors. I'm going to go a little bit higher and say a 7. I thought this was an above average movie that was pretty great, and I enjoyed it in the moment, and it gave me a lot of, it actually, made me quite reflective in my own life of like, how am I putting myself out there? How am I being perceived? Do I have any control over that? So yeah, a lot of reflective thoughts that the movie gave in me, but it's not a movie that I ever need to watch again. And
Right.
some of my favorite movies, the all timers, the ones without an expiration date, I could watch it 100 times. There's special rare movies that have that effect on me, but apparently there was a lot of them at some point. So maybe like
Hmm.
either storytellers are getting lazy, or I'm getting older, or it's a combination of both. Maybe it is even laziness. Maybe it's they're trying really hard, but there's just been a lot of stories that have already been told. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
also thought it was like, yeah, it was just like kind of a unique premise to base an entire movie around of like, oh, somebody fell. Let's look at it. So
hmm
yeah,
I'm
uh,
kind of I'm you said it was nominated for Best Picture.
yeah,
That surprises me. Like because I saw that it said like at the beginning that it was like um
it won
it
the
like I
Palme
think it
d'Or.
it what yeah, and that
Hmm.
see that doesn't surprise me because I definitely think it deserves it and like out of like the other French films that are being produced, but I'm kind of surprised that this was chosen and no, no hate, but I just don't know. I'm surprised that American audiences would enjoy it as much as like,
Yeah,
the general person who
yeah,
maybe yeah,
yeah. Because
who's
there's best international, like best
mhm
international film is its own category. Like in my opinion, I don't know if we're going to review this movie on the podcast, but I think Society of the Snow was a way better movie than this movie. Like Society of the Snow was like really impactful to me. And I feel like that's a movie that I probably will rewatch again someday when I'm feeling really low or really high, depending on what the situation is in that movie at any given time. But let's
true.
stick with Anatomy of a Fall. Those are our spoiler free thoughts. Now let's jump into spoilers. Full spoiler warning for the movie Anatomy of a Fall. If you want to watch the movie and see it without having any major plot points spoiled for you, we both do recommend that. I would say we both say that it's a slightly above average film that was at least worth watching, even if it wasn't one of our more recent favorites. So yeah, so speaking of spoilers, what is maybe the first thing at the forefront of your mind, maybe good or bad, that you want to talk about that is, maybe spoils the movie?
Um, let's see. First of all, I'm definitely gonna have that song stuck in my head forever, and it's gonna be
Which one?
like the song at the song that was playing that he was playing while she was getting interviewed.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that's gonna be
It was an
negatively.
instrumental rap song or something like that,
hmm
right?
Yeah, 50 Cent. It was
Yeah.
like a instrumental cover of it.
And again, like, I don't know, again, I think that's, to the movie's credit, I'm going to die today. Is this the song I want to listen to when I die? No.
Yeah.
But we don't think about that. We're just listening to bullshit music. You know what I mean? like
I
it's
looked up
yeah.
the song and like the top comment on YouTube was, "Oh, I finally found a song that I can insulate my house to."
um, I would say something that I didn't really talk about in the spoiler-free section was the overall filmmaking and
Mm.
performances. I was because I really feel like the screenplay and the script and the back and forth of all the different ways that you can look at the evidence and how you interpret and how you
Mhm.
attack and how you defend, like the riveting courtroom drama stuff in the movie, I thought was like really well written. But and the performances were so believable. It's so believable,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
She did an amazing job. She definitely deserves the nomination.
Yeah, and she played it so well where I'm like, I can't fucking tell if you're telling me the truth or not. Like, it's acted that
Mhm.
way, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, like you said, I was so back and forth the entire time. I didn't know. I thought at one point I thought that the kid maybe did something whenever like he gives the dog aspirin.
Mm hmm.
I was like, "What are you doing?" Did he kill him? Like what? Like that's such an insane thing to do to your dog to like but then when he said like that's what happened when the dog ate like vomit on the floor and he said so I think she's telling the truth and then he said but I don't know today I don't know if I believe her like oh my gosh
Yeah.
I was so stressed out during that whole part when like the dog was laying on the ground I went
Yeah. And it's so beautiful, too, at the script level because it really drives home. I really feel like the whole movie is about things in your life that you don't think matter, they matter,
mm-hmm.
right? For good or bad, they matter. That time you
Every
got in an
argument
argument, that time you listened to that 50 Cent song, the time that
mm-hmm.
you accidentally fed your dog, poison or medicine or whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not thinking how how seriously these decisions can impact you, like until they do, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, I really felt that was really driven home. I also liked all of the different ways that they went over the analysis of the fall, the 3D computer models, the drawings, the
Mhm.
real life measurements, the people there.
Mhm. The
Literal,
dummy throwing that out the window.
yes. There's almost like a dark comedy element to it in those moments.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just how everything came together with the kid, and again, like the kid, and again, like just the search for the truth in an imperfect system that is,
Mhm.
everybody in there is a human being that is all flawed, and they have their own, a piece of advice that I heard a long time ago is that, like, when you're getting advice, remember the bias. Who
Mhm.
everybody is biased towards or for or against something. Like, if you're getting advice on whether to stay in a relationship or not, does the person you're talking to hate your significant other? Then maybe take that with a
Right.
grain of salt. You need to consider their
Yeah.
biases when you're getting advice, right? And so, um, thinking about the pressure that kid was on, it's like, I could lie and keep my mom out of jail, but what if she killed my dad? Like,
Right.
just, and again, that the human decision making impacting the search for objective truth. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Well, and then like him like testifying and then saying and then it like he maybe didn't tell the truth and he said, "Oh, I just didn't remember." But it was like, but he said before, like each tape is different. I know I was outside. Like you would know if you were outside in the freezing cold snow or if you were inside your warm house when you like overheard things. But then they talked about like, oh, but like with trauma, it might cause your like memories to be incorrect. That whole yeah, it was definitely I was being pulled all directions. I did not I mean, even with the ending and with the verdict, we don't know if that's actually true. He could have been lying about the
Mm-hmm.
conversation he had with his dad, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically what exonerated her. I was totally expecting at the end when she was in his office for us to like see something, maybe like her, to like her like I don't know, like showing that she got away with it or like her remembering like that maybe she did push him, whatever, something like that. And I was like, "Oh, that's just it. That's it. That's the end."
Yeah, I'll share my thoughts on the ending in just a moment. In thinking about this movie, something that is also really interesting and unique to it is, normally in courtroom dramas you have, the what is it, the plaintiff and the defendant, right? The
Mhm.
prosecution and the defense, and in this one, uh, that's the same person. You know what I mean? Like, the main character, the protagonist, the hero we're supposed to root for. If there's a villain in the movie at all, she's it. Otherwise,
Mhm.
there isn't one, because
Right.
the prosecuting attorney, who's like very aggressive, you know,
Mhm.
they're not like the bad lawyer in this. They're defending, somebody who died. They're trying to
Yeah.
find out on behalf of the rest of his family, what is the truth, what happened to this person, was it an accident or not. And so,
Mhm.
even when that attorney maybe, is overly aggressive, it's almost like you can't be aggressive enough when we're trying to find out what actually happened. So I thought that was interesting,
Right.
because usually
Yeah.
most trials you're rooting for or against one of the attorneys.
Mhm. I thought it was really interesting because I don't know anything about like the French judicial system, but like
Yeah.
seeing that you can just talk whenever, anybody can say anything. There's multiple judges. You're just, there's no, it's not like ours. So that was very interesting to see how like that all played out. Um, in I was trying to remember if like the cinematography of those scenes, it seemed like it was like we were watching like footage of the actual trial and it wasn't like how the camera normally was. Like you would
Yeah.
see the camera would like quickly zoom in on people. It would kind of like move around, kind of like we were watching like news coverage of it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which I thought was interesting. And then specifically the scene where the sun is up there for the first time and the camera keeps moving back and forth, like that's whenever like the person on the right would talk and it would
Yeah.
go there and there. I really loved that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really clever.
Speaking of the ending,
Mhm.
right now, like, do you have an opinion on if she did it or not?
Um, Based on the son, his conversation with the dad, I was like, okay, then he did it himself. It wasn't her. So I mean, I think she's probably
We didn't
innocent.
even talk about the defense of he jumped on purpose,
Yeah.
right? It was he pushed, he fell on accident, he jumped on purpose. That like was added in later,
Hmm.
like maybe he did it himself. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, because what was so like the whole time they were like, oh, well, there was the place on his head was consistent with him being bashed over the head. They said it could not have come from him falling on the whatever the shed that was below, because they said they didn't find any DNA on there from him. But then whenever the woman came and said, no, he probably did fall from the top because the snow would have melted it off.
That's
Then
right.
whenever she came in, I was like, oh, maybe she didn't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole thing of it was just it was like deep and like dark, and I was like, I didn't anticipate that this is what this movie was gonna get into
Mm-hmm.
about, a man and his decision to do that and to his family and like what would drive him to do that, and did him having an argument about how about his life, like would somebody they'll do that after they seemed like so full of energy to like have a better life and try to like change things, and
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, it was just it was a lot. It was intense.
Um, like for me, I'll say a few things about the ending. I wasn't a fan of it. I felt like we did not. I'm usually a fan of ambiguous endings. I don't want to spoil a bunch of movies to hear it, but I'll just say I usually like it's up for interpretation. With this particular movie, where we have an entire premise on the premise of the movie is how did they fall? To not pay that
Yeah.
off with the definitive answer, even the rigmaroles and the back and forth of the trial and the interpersonal relationships and how people communicate with each other and whether her lawyer believes her or not and all these things. It's like I understand that for the context of the movie, the world of the movie, and through for going through the judicial system. That it's going to be ambiguous. We don't know. There's not a preponderance of the evidence to figure it out. As a movie watcher, I wanted an answer. I wanted to know what happened. You know what I mean? Even if the
Hmm.
characters in the movie don't get to know, I want to know what is it for real.
You want to
You
see
know,
that scene of, like it's, oh, the trial's over, and then we actually see the actual scene play out. Are they arguing and then he falls?
that would have been
Did he do it himself?
I that would have been like maybe one of the best movie endings I've ever seen in my life. Is for 2.5 hours they give you all these assumptions and accusations and he said this, she said this, and they did this and they did that, and then the last 5 minutes of the movie is just here's how it happened, and it had nothing to fucking do with what we were all just talking
It
about.
was some random
Something
person
else
came in and did
completely,
it.
or
The
just
dog knocked into him or
yeah,
something like that.
maybe that's an extreme, but even if it ended up being one of those scenarios, if the movie just quietly and confidently says, "Here's literally what happened. You get to see it because you're watching a movie, but the world of the movie will never get to know," and then it just cuts to
Hmm.
black after he falls.
Hmm.
I thought that would have been beautiful because it also would have really bookended. Like it opens with the fall, it ends with the fall, and you see them at two
Hmm.
different completely different
Yeah.
lights. I thought that would have been the perfect ending, but not a fan of the ambiguousness. Um, and I wish I would have known. My feeling is that it was literally written in such a way that there isn't an answer. I feel like the who wrote the screenplay literally did it so that it could be taken both ways. You know,
Yeah.
specifically with the point in mind to say we don't know because they don't know. And part of me respects that, but on the other hand, it's like I would have liked to know, like the intention of the writer in that moment, or of, because you're as the writer, you're saying, well, this is the real situation. Now here's the movie
Hmm.
about it, and what does the evidence? What can you prove? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I
Yeah,
genuinely get
I
the
kind
feeling
of
it was so back and forth that they don't even have that answer behind the scenes. there is no answer.
Yeah, they're like, this is just for the audience to figure out. It's not for
Mm.
us to decide.
Yeah.
I was pretty much against her the entire movie, to be honest. She never really had me on her side. Um, Even at the end when she was exonerated, I wasn't really like, even if she didn't do it, she just was never on my side. Um, I think because of like some of like, I mean, her faults. I mean, everybody's human, whatever, but
Yeah.
it just, I don't know. And then like all the stuff with, um, like him saying she like was not really taking care of their son, and then it's like, well, like, is this, I don't know, did the son, did he lie just so he could have at least one parent around? Like his dad's gone, but does he want his mom to be gone too? At least,
Yeah.
still be with him then. I don't know, but she never really had me on her side, but the actress did. Like
Right.
her performance was so good. I don't think we're supposed to be on her side, really. I don't think. I think we're supposed to be suspicious the entire time because of the evidence, like, it seemed
Yeah.
like she did it.
I mean, in the information that we have in the movie, the flashbacks that we were shown, like, I don't think he jumped out himself. I think he either fell or he was pushed. And um, I do think the most compelling evidence is the gash, is the hit, where they said
Yeah.
definitively this was a blunt object strike. Period.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I don't. The movie was not made for us to know. That's like very clear. The movie was made
Yeah.
for us, again, to realize the moments in our lives that end up having more meaning, and
Hmm.
just how superfluous conversations can change your life forever.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's going to do it for our review of Anatomy of a Fall. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like it and rate and review and subscribe wherever you are consuming it. As always, thank you for watching or listening. Until next time.
Bye.